Welcome. In this presentation, we're going to discuss RDF, Dublin Core, and the metadata methodology. In other words, we're going to discuss how humans describe and relate things on the internet. RDF is an acronym for Resource Description Framework. RDF is a framework or a logical structure for describing resources. Most metadata schemas, including Dublin Core, are built using RDF. RDF is made up of relationships called triples, which can make descriptive statements about any entity. You may recognize the formula below from basic language classes demonstrating a subject-verb relationship in English. But here the formula is used to describe an object. And in this case, lunch is described by the boy's action of eating it. Multiple triples, like this one, can build defining characteristics of an entity based upon a constructed context. It's important to note that here a URI can be used to represent each component of the triple. We'll talk more about this later, but it is an important point to remember before going forward. Triples are used to build metadata schemas. There are many popular metadata schemas utilized for a variety of descriptive purposes. Dublin Core is the focus of this presentation, but many aspects of Dublin Core organization will also apply to other metadata schemas. A metadata schema is a set of rules about what sorts of triples one is allowed to make and how one is allowed to make them. Dublin Core is one of the most utilized metadata schemas in the world. It was designed to be inexpensive, easy to use, and adaptable to many purposes. We now know that RDF provides a structure called triples to describe entities. We know there are many metadata schemas that use triples in their descriptive framework. We also know that there are numerous metadata schemas designed for specific applications, such as describing art, science, or archival objects. And finally, we know that Dublin Core is one of the most popular and versatile schemas in use today. Dublin Core includes 15 original elements used to describe an object. No elements are required to be used, and each element can be used multiple times. Now, I'm not going to read each element and its description to you at this point. But if these elements are unfamiliar to you, I do encourage you to pause the presentation here for just a few minutes, read the elements, and understand the definitions that Dublin Core is putting forth. The 15 Dublin Core elements can be refined to increase the granularity of their descriptive power. There are 3 ways you can do this. First, you could utilize one of the 40 term extensions specified by Dublin Core. Now, these extensions were released after the original Core 15 elements, exactly for this reason. Secondly, you could utilize qualifiers, now called refinements, that narrow the meaning of a specific element. A qualifier to the date element would look something like date.created. There's a number of these, and they work very similar to the term extensions above. Thirdly, you could utilize an encoding scheme or a controlled vocabulary to specify the value of the element. We're going to talk about those next. But remember, Dublin Core terms and element qualifiers must be constructed based upon the Dublin Core abstract model. This is a data model based upon the triples concept that we previously defined. Element encoding schemes are represented as standard syntax encoding or as a controlled vocabulary. Examples of standard syntax encoding for language are ISO 638-2, ISO 639-3, and RFC 1766. Now, if you hate acronyms as much as I do, this can be a little troubling. But I will tell you that ISO refers to the International Organization for Standardization. These syntax standards will define how one enters basic information such as date or the capitalization or format of a descriptive word. The key here is standardization. Examples of controlled vocabularies are LCSH, TGM, or AAT. And yes, I realize more acronyms. LCSH refers to the Library of Congress subject headings list. TGM refers to the thesaurus for graphic materials. And AAT refers to the Art and Architecture thesaurus. These vocabularies define the only words that may be used to describe a subject in their particular universe. Metadata is a means of describing things. Through this presentation, we have learned that digital metadata is presented to us primarily in the form of RDF triples. Triples are utilized to construct descriptive statements which are organized with various metadata schemas such as Dublin Core and its 15 core elements. These elements can then be used to describe any subject in the world. Elements in Dublin Core can be enhanced via refinement techniques such as controlled syntax structure and vocabulary. Remember the boy eats lunch triple? Extensible markup language, known as XML, can instruct a computer to utilize RDF triples like this one to interpret and share data. Within such a scenario, there is only one definition of boy, eats, or lunch. Each of these values is represented via a unique URI, such as our example of www.boy.com representing the word boy. This URI would then serve to standardize the definition of the word boy worldwide. Such a centralization of defining terms promises to improve digital communications and propel us closer to a vision of the Internet called Web 3.0. Web 3.0, of course, is a linked data system of triples, enhancing semantic relationships across the Internet universe. This presentation has described the basic concepts of RDF, Dublin Core, and the metadata methodology related to these structures. It is by no means an all-inclusive discussion of the topic, and the viewer is encouraged to utilize other information resources to enhance and supplement this basic introduction. Thank you.